Okay, hello, Jai Jinendra, everyone. We are doing yet another interview for our project of Jain migration history, and we are really honored and delighted to today to have with us Professor Kanti Mardia, who spent the bulk of his career at Leeds University. But as you will see, he has a very distinguished global career. And he is a Jain, born in India, born in Rajasthan, with two PhDs and an honorary doctorate. He is world famous in the field of statistics as a pioneer. But alongside that also is that he has always carried the Jain flag with him. He is very proud of his roots, and he has also published some fascinating new research, original research on Jain philosophy, which we will also be talking about a bit later. I am blessed and fortunate to have known him for over 30 years. I think since the opening of the Leicester Jain Temple, I have known him. He also founded the Yorkshire Jain Foundation. I mean, one of the things that I want to expose through these interviews is we talk about a temple as a kind of very beautiful physical space for worship. But what I have seen with personalities in our community is they themselves have effectively become temples, especially when they have gone on their own to a completely new country without any relatives or family. And yet, with their own creativity, resourcefulness, intelligence, and charisma, they have also become a magnetic field for Jain philosophy, Jain science, Jain culture, and Jain leadership. I mean, here, not only is Professor Mardia an accomplished statistician, he is also a global leader and pioneer in the field of statistics, right? So it's one thing to become a professor, but it's quite another to actually lead and pioneer a field. So in one personality, we have this combination of so many skills and tremendous humility. And I also know his family, his wife Pavananti, who has been an extremely supportive wife, but also, very proud Jain, and the whole family has kept the Jain culture alive in Yorkshire for all this time. And I was present when they installed the first Jain Murti at the Leeds Hindu temple in the early 2000s, I think. And, so in so many ways, they have contributed. So, and he's also, Kantibai is a fellow of the Royal Statistical Society in Britain. He's a visiting professor at Oxford University, of all places. Can you believe it? And, I mean, the number of publications, I mean, in academia, the number of citations marked us out as to how our research has contributed to the field. And Kantibai's citations go into the tens of thousands. I've lost the exact figure. I think, is it 15,000 or 30,000? Something like that. Uh, you know, yeah, and it's incredible. So Kantibai, tell us a little bit about your early childhood and growing up in India.
Well, first of all, Jai Janendra, Atul, is a noble work you are doing, and you continue what you started with Jain Spirit, where I am glad to be have involved in various ways, and I wrote for Jain Spirit. It was one of tremendous work. It was a tremendous initiative, and I do miss it, I must say, because that provided a good venue for some new work, especially with colorful pictures, graphics, and whatnot. I think so. Well, nice to be with you. Again, you are doing such a noble work. You now started this exciting initiative. So first of all, let me say it's kind of you to give that introduction, it's frightening. Sometimes when people do this, I feel that this is not someone me, but they are talking of my double, so that I feel in some sense not only humiliated, but it feel awkward. Okay, so what I will do is I will start with first sentence of first chapter in my book, The Scientific Foundation of Jainism. The scientific foundation of Jainism, I wrote Jainness, because to call of Jainism is rather bit not correct. I think it's an incorrect way. Jain work is a scientific way of Jain. So that's the first line which my book, if I may show, I think this is the first edition. I think it has gone through many pictures, different pictures at the top. Motilal Banarsi Das, I have enjoyed making an exciting thing about it. Whenever new edition came, they put a new figure at the top to make it more attractive. So the one which I started with was our first line, the universal prayer, Namo Arihantanam. So I bow to all those who have conquered themselves. So that's the fundamental first line of Jain thinking, is conquering inner enemies. I think the inner enemies are the one which we all get challenges, and it is seen now with more and more of this social media, more and more of interaction, global interaction. I think the impact of Jain thinking has to be much more than what we have seen. Many other things are happening. So that's is one of the I have one of quotation of our Jain thinking. And as you, Atul, said, of course, I'm very proud to be Jain. And as someone else have said, that if I'm reborn, I would like to be born again as Jain, because there is a lot of things I want to still do. I think statistics is a diversion in some sense. So that's definitely, it is again not a religion, it is a philosophy, and very scientific philosophy. And if we are looking for something which is more plausible, then you can't do other than going towards Jain literature. I will come back later on. You asked me, now let me go through my childhood. So I was born in Siroi, Rajasthan, Siroi district, what it is called now, which is Siroi state. It is a small state, and one of the most important architecture or the part of Siroi is Mount Abu and the Dilwara temple. So I grew up in those very exciting surroundings and environment. And in fact, Siroi is called small Shatrunja. So because there is a street which is full of temples, continuous. So people go for pilgrimage. So I was born in a family, strict Jain family, and we did, when childhood, we did puja, we did samyak, we did every aspect of it without questioning. Has to be, father is doing, mother is doing it, grandma is doing it, so you do it. And then the influence, of course, of continued. And later on, of course, I started questioning, which I will come later on. So that was the one part of my childhood. We have four brothers. Two, unfortunately, are not with us anymore, and one sister. So I had a good company, in the home, with my elder brother was 1 year older, and the younger brother was 2 years older. And unfortunately, I had something wrong, that I was in all games, I was captain. So I have to lead somehow. Even at small age, I think one could see that's happening. So we came from a very rich family. At so when my grandfather was a pioneer, and he went to Mumbai, Bombay now, and made accumulated quite a lot of fortune. He was a very wealthy, rich man with many buildings in Mumbai, many movies, theaters, and so on and so forth. So that culture or that effect of bringing up in a rich family had influence. However, being Jain, I think my strict upbringing was very evident in spite of it. So as the story goes, which I won't bore you with, that my father had a tragedy just now, like many people are having with COVID. At that time, in around 1920s or something, there was a plague, not plague, but there was some kind of flu or whatever it was, that my grandfather died in the same year. My two uncles died in the same year. Their family died in the same year. So my father was the only then child left of our family. So he was very philosophical. And I learned from him that, you can be easily in rat race, but you have to keep in perspective, as our Jain views are, that you have to have a balance, you have to have Jainness everywhere if possible. So that's give you a rough background of part of my childhood and of the family. Another thing which I should add, that as a writer, I have been writing books in mathematics. I'm writing books in Jainism, and I wrote initially some stories even when in my college days in Hindi. And I was looking, from where I got the genes? Where did they come from? And my maternal grandfather, he wrote novels at very early age, someone called Buddhi Dhan and a few other novels. So he was very literary. And when I was coming here in 64, sorry to inject this, I said, I'm going to University of Newcastle. So he looked at me and said, what? What Newcastle? You should have been to Oxford or Cambridge. So, so he was quite ambitious for his grandchildren. So then I was very pleased that, I got chance of becoming visiting professor from 2013, though I had a chance before, but I couldn't take it for some reason. We can explain later. So that gives you some aspect of my genes. Now to go to other aspect that had always influenced me considerably is love for mathematics, or shouldn't call passion for mathematics because it becomes a kashaya, which is not a good thing. But love for mathematics, I didn't know I had any until I was about 9 years old in a school. And so it was a school in Sroi, just started about 10 years with high school before my birth. So it was a young, and most of teachers were local teachers, except one who, when I was 9 years old, or what is called in the third grade of that time, he came from Ajmer, other part of Rajasthan, someone called Mr. Arora. And he had a very different habit than my all other teachers. All other teachers, they wanted to say, sit down. If you ask any question, you're thinking yourself too great, and so on and so forth. But with him, in mathematics class, instead of contemporary way of doing it, or orthodox way of that time, he would set a puzzle and then he would ask to the class who will solve it get 1 anna. At that time, I'm talking of long time ago, so it is 1944, it is about that. So 1 anna was a lot of money. and to get 1 anna, you could do anything. So 99% of time I would come with answer. And he thought I was really smart, good boy, and should be nurtured. And he gave a lot of encouragement. And I could see that I had mathematics in myself. And that influenced my career throughout. However, with love of mathematics, I had one disadvantage. I didn't like other subjects at all. And that didn't do good. I think I was always asked to leave the class. I had to stand up and I had to become murga, this all. So I had a tough time actually in schooling because dedicated to mathematics, but didn't like other subjects because there was nothing to challenge. This has written this, Y has written this, Z has written this. So I said, what? If they have written, they have done. What is left over? And so that attitude problem was bad, actually. I think I didn't become popular. And I wasn't, most of teachers, they thought I'm really arrogant to that extent. So I tried to keep away from most of these work. And the other thing happened is because of my attitude of mathematics, I didn't take any science because there was option, and I said, I may do drawing or Sanskrit. So I did Sanskrit, but then somehow I didn't develop much. I'm not good at language, so that I regret now. Now I have to learn. I've been learning, the late learner. So all in all, what happened was in high school, because of my very skewed way of working, I got third class. I was good in mathematics, but other subject I didn't do well. And then, of course, family thought I should really get into business now. I'm no good getting third class, while others are getting first and second. And this boy, he thinks he's a great mathematician, but there's nothing there to show. So anyway, so that was a departure. But then I told parents that, if there is a course somewhere in any university where I could take mathematics as the key subject, but nothing else, then I would love it, because I can handle mathematics because there is not everything is set. And there was opportunity. There was in Jodhpur, they just opened a particular group, class for those who haven't had any science background in inter-science. At that time, there was 11, 12, first year of inter-science, second year before you did the degree. So anyway, I got into this, and then there was more mathematics, which I loved it. I grasped many different aspects, trigonometric, high-level algebra, and the dynamics, statistics, and various branches that are available. And there was also physics, and there was also chemistry you have to take. But physics and chemistry, they were of course, chemical equations, but these were equations, and they were also similar. In physics was more mathematical than what we were taught. So it changed my career, and in fact, I did very well in my inter-science. However, the family was, we had this business in Mumbai, and moving more and more towards Mumbai. So parents said, you now move to Mumbai. So this is 1953. So 51, 53.
So I just got admission in Mumbai by skin of my teeth, because in language I was never good, and in English I had very low marks. And if I had 1 mark less, they would not have admitted me. There was no other way of Bombay University would have me. So anyway, so that was a boon actually that changed my career, because now for your BSc, you could take two subjects. So one is called major, which was mathematics, and one is subsidiary, which was physics. And of course, I was always frightened of practicals. I always made mess, but that continued. Even there, they had practical in physics. But after 1 year, that's the end of physics and only mathematics, nothing but mathematics. So that's roughly was one of the big change in my life, I think. But change also was in Bombay. In Bombay, in Jodhpur, Siroi, the culture was quite different. So when I attended classes in my degree, all these classmates wouldn't understand Hindi. And I couldn't understand English most of it. So there was a real cultural gap, I think. From their point of view, I wasn't really qualified to be there. It's, because they went to Don Bosco School and St. Xavier School, and there's this Mardia, who is a... so anyway, but the crunch is, there was one very good professor, and Professor Phadke, and we went very well, and he also had the style like Aurora. He would ask you question, very provocative, and normally I could answer whatever he was asking. Sometimes it was difficult because he was a geometer and I was an algebraist. So there was a bit of conflict, but otherwise, so to end this whole long story, is that we had about 10 students in this particular group. And the result came, I thought I did well. So, and in the olden time, you have to go and look at the board. I don't know now, it's all on, newspaper or internet. And I looked at my number 121, and they were my friends with me, classmates. So 121 is not in first class, 121 is not in second class, 121 is not in third class, 120. So I said, well, I just slumped and sat down. And they said that you are at the top, you are first class with distinction. And that shocked me. Because I knew I was good at mathematics, but not in Bombay University to make a mark after coming from Rajasthan with that background. And then one got third class out of 10, and all others failed. So Professor Phadke, he was not only he was bright, very nice man. He called me at his house, and he said, "I want to give you a present. Tell me what you want." And in India at that time, I think giving present to student, pre-Bollywood days was not common actually. I never heard of that before. So I asked him what I wanted was Bhargava's dictionary, English to Hindi, Hindi to English. He laughed. And he gave me actually, and he took me to the shop and bought. But then what happened was he said, if you were not a student, the department started with you. He was the first head of department of mathematics, and he created a new department, and he said it would have closed down. And because of you, it will survive.
So that is one of the landmark of life that you don't know what you are doing, that how you are helping in a broader way rather than just doing thinking things. So
That
do you
is
want me to
really
ask?
all very fascinating, Kantibai, Professor Mardia. It's quite interesting that you remember the name of your primary school teacher and the name of your university professor as well. Nowadays, we live in a world where teachers are not really valued. Even professors, people don't remember the name of, right? And this idea, but if you think about knowledge and how in our culture, samyak gnan, we give so much, we've always given so much emphasis to knowledge and education and learning. And we are a very learned community globally. But it's quite interesting how, in a sense, nowadays, because we've become very much a business community, our focus is very much on how much money you're earning. So sometimes I'm a professor of business, and sometimes my students tell me, "Oh, how come you are not working in business? Why are you teaching? Are you teaching because you couldn't do well in business?" Yeah. So it's like you think, where is the respect? But there you go. So thank you so much for sharing those early days. Now you let us talk about your British story. You leaving your family all back in India, finishing your PhD there, and then coming to UK to start a new PhD and also to become a professor in the end. So how was that journey?
Yes, well, I think it's connected with India, unfortunately. So I will bore you with more anecdotes. So since I got first class with distinction, my parents wanted me to go to engineering school, the VJTI, which is one of the topmost of India at that time. So they said you should apply. I applied, and my heart was not in it. I got the admission, and I tried to tell parents that I want to do mathematics. I don't want to, I'm not good at hands, and I will make a mess of it. But the way. So, however, I convinced them, and then I asked someone, and they said statistics, which was one of the option I had in my by chance in my BSc, is flourishing, and there is quite a lot of data-driven the way the world is moving. So I applied for Department of Statistics in Bombay University, which was one of the top university in statistics, and the selection was not easy. Uh, all 24 students who were there, all were with top ranking. So to get into it, even with first class or distinction, was not easy. So I came into a new world, a world where there were quite a many clever people, the very brilliance, if you can look at brilliance, there was brilliance, cream of cream. And the professors were very much tuned internationally with the world of statistics. So it was not only they taught at MSc, what was in the books as it were, but in journals, what was coming, new area coming. So I was very fortunate to have that background, to start off with that MSc. And in Indian universities, that MSc were 2 years. Uh, so then after 2 years, there was a choice of doing either PhD or to go for a job. And I won't go into detail of how many rejection I got, but uh, but then there is a well-known college called Elphinstone College Stroke Institute of Science in Bombay, and I was told to see Professor Masani, who was a student of Wiener in Harvard, and he had a PhD from Harvard. And when I met him, then I said, that I'm still thinking of career, whether to go for a PhD or. So then he told me, he sent me a letter straight by saying that we offer you a lectureship. And I wasn't sure whether that was the right, because I was just 22 years old. And to start lectureship while I wanted to do PhD. Anyway, I asked people and I took, because Professor Masani was so international and famous, he said he will groom you. So anyway, the story is he embedded in me that get out of India. Go abroad, to do PhD, and so anyway, so there was a period where I was trying and somehow it didn't work out, and then became another lecturer at some good college, Ruia College. But I didn't like Bombay life, so 53 to 61 I was in Bombay, and I was spending more time in traveling and less time in lecturing. And I said, that's not the way. I want to leave the rest of it. So I decided that I will retire in India, in Rajasthan, India. So there was an opening. They were headhunting in Rajasthan University, Jaipur. They were started Department of Statistics. So and I was selected, and then I formed the department and created many good students. So roughly that was it. But then someone else came, and there was slightly personality differences. So I thought, now I don't think I can retire in Jaipur. It just looked like that. That's not my karma. My karmic matter emission is doing something else than what I've been thinking or what we thought. So we look abroad. So that is now the story begins. So anyway, I got a Commonwealth fellowship, out of a big competition. And I didn't want to do second PhD, but they said that if you don't do PhD, we'll withdraw it. So I came to Newcastle in 1964 with my wife, Pawan, and my two young children. So Bela, which was 5 years old, Hemant, who was 3 years old. So we come to a country where there is no idea of vegetarianism. We were put into Imperial Hotel in Russell Square. And oh boy, I think it was a terrible. We had to keep on asking for salad and keep on asking. And, it was so that we wanted to get out of this place, go to Newcastle as fast as possible, because we were hungry to eat our Indian food. And only once we went to Indian High Commission, there was restaurant, and that was a treat. So we had to eat in 2 weeks only one Indian meal. So my children, oh boy, they loved it. Actually, they were. So we come to Newcastle, and because of British Council were looking after our family, and they put us into a guest house. That we might continue if longer, if need be. And then the owner was Indian and wife was British. And we came out of train, came to the place, and Hemant was very hungry. And there was banana. He said, can Dad have banana? So I asked this, and this lady said, no, you can't. You have to wait until that time comes for dinner. And I couldn't believe my ear. I said, what kind of country? And I told her that, we couldn't eat anything on the train because of being vegetarian, but nothing doing. So I thought, we have to get out of this place as fast as we can. So I told British Council, I complained that this is, first we are in a new country. There is a language problem, there is a cultural problem.
And then on the top of it, there's the eating problem. Face to face, when there are bananas, I can't eat bananas. My children can't. In spite of the background, we are just coming tired and all. Anyway, so fortunately, this British Council was really good. They took me to Indian family, Sikh family called Ghura, and they found accommodation for us, and we spent 2.5 years of happy year in Newcastle. And I'm sure that if I was at another place, we would have gone back. But because these couple, they had children of similar age, they had grocery shop, they looked after us to drive here, there. We had evenings with them. So overall, we felt so homely. And on the other hand, from India, of course, I had a position. They were offering me leadership in Rajasthan University at Jaipur, but with condition that I can be given any type of course, undergraduate to whatever level. And it was with that threatening kind of a letter that so I said, well, India is really now, at least Jaipur is out. So I had to cancel contract and pay money and agreement and all those things I had to go through, the proper way to continue in this country. And then I started looking for a job. My Professor Plackett, Robin Plackett, he was a wonderful man, very generous, very kind, very helpful. And he left research to me because he knew I was matured enough. And we will see when we have something to discuss. So I carried on mostly by myself. But then he made sure, he told me, Kanti, we always call Mardia, Dr. Mardia, you have to learn computing. That's the future. And I didn't like computing at all. I think at that time it was really not like now. It was very laborious. However, I had to do for my part of the work. So then now it begins. He offered me a job, but meanwhile, I didn't have clearance from India. So then by the time I got clearance, I had to start looking elsewhere. And you won't believe, they applied to first year of Leeds for lectureship, and they rejected me. Where then in 1973, I became full professor in another department. So that's what, karma, I think is a curious way, where it takes you. You don't know, being even statistician can't predict things. However, there was a good opening in Hull. It was a new developing department, and they, took me with open arm because one of the lecturer was from Berkeley, and he knew my work, and they grabbed me. He said, "You just come." So that was the beginning in April 1967. So I finished my PhD in 2 years, and the external said, your work can make 2 PhDs. It is so heavy. So that was a breakthrough because that started many things afterward in statistics. So we come to Hull. We have a new child. Nita was born in Newcastle just before arrival. We come to this new place where there are no guras, no friends, and there was only one lecturer at that time, Indian, which you may know now, Bhikkhu Parekh, Lord Bhikkhu Parekh now. So he helped me to settle, and you won't believe that because of the family, I don't want to go through gory detail. I bought a house within 1 week
at that time it was possible. It wasn't like today, which is a, you have to go through quite a lot of legal activities and legal jargons. So that was a beginning in Hull. The family was growing. They had a very good company because in the neighborhood where I was, by chance, opposite to me was Professor Slater, who was head of the department. Had I known, perhaps I would not have bought the house then. I bought the house first and then. So I could help him, I think, in some sense. I could drive him around, and which was a good thing because it's just opposite. Would you believe statistics? Synchronicity, what law of averages, where it breaks down in rare events. But then there were all these nice people around. Alan Plater, the great drama writer, you might have heard in BBC. His son was going to the same school where Leela was going and Hemant were going, and many other distinguished. So I, we settled down. We liked life in Hull. I was given tough courses. Of course, Indian accent is one of the things, but in mathematics, I don't think it matters as much unless one is has got some differences because mathematics are all notations, equations, and logic. So it is any language. So I handle very big classes. 100. They wanted me to try those out because they had problem, but I sailed through, and then I was getting promotion, so from lecturer to senior lecturer in a couple of years, and then reader in a few years. So, however, partly, I think people were saying that you should be trying professorship because I wrote few great papers and path-breaking book, which is in 1972, what called Rational Studies of Directional Data, which has become a classic actually, which is has opened the field. And if you have heard that 85th birthday celebration, someone who he described what is done. I didn't know that I've done anything like that. To build up the subject which didn't exist. Even the word rational data analysis didn't exist, and I created so many things. Similar thing, I think I created the vocabulary, terminology in the Jain thinking. I don't call it Jainism, Jain thinking, because Jain thinking is the correct way, even not philosophy. I think thinking is much more than philosophy, actually. So anyway, while the children were growing up, their career, and Pawan also, because she had degree from Rajasthan University, first year of master, and she wanted to do something. So she wanted to be teacher, but then they didn't, at that time, they said your degree is not valid of Rajasthan University. So she took, meanwhile all gone, she took his graduate course, certificate course in teaching for 3 years. And she did a lot of mathematics, very high level. I was shocked she was doing matrix algebra and all that. What? So this all was going on, and we were all happy, and I wanted to continue. So I asked, the head of department then, what are the chances of my professorship here? He said 0 probability, because in Hull there was no idea at that time of personal chair. So if they advertise, then you can apply, but being in, you have to resign first and then apply for the chair. And the chair was already filled. So
So that meant, in spite of getting used to so much of Hull, I think there was no choice but to move to make progress in the career. Also, the other thing was there were very few Indians in Hull, very few families. And for grocery, we'll go to Leeds to buy things from Hull. So it was so the two things happened. Then I was also abroad because the racial tension was always there, and was not sure whether it will be good for children. So I was looking also for America, and I was given a good offer from one university, but they wouldn't give me tenure. And I said, I won't come without tenure. I'd heard so many stories. I've been there in some of the places. I wrote references for some people. And so that didn't work out because they were reluctant. And I said, I will spend my life in just doing nothing but work for 10 years, in the politics academy. So, however, the one other thing happened, great thing in Hull, that children were going in these schools where a lot of Christianity was taught. They were drilled through. Sorry to use that word. I think it is not right, but the way I was looking, that they were grilled. When they come home, I was asking what they are doing on the religious side. And they were also curious that I keep on saying that we are Jain and we did prayer every day. We had a small picture of Parshvanath and Mahaswami, which my father gave when we moved to this country. So we prayed every day, and they said, well, it's okay, we Parshvanath, Bhagwan, and Mahaswami. So what is Jainism? What is Jain? Well, what is the difference between Christianity and Jain thinking? So then I think it shook me because I was brought up never questioning my dad and mom. We are brought up in Jain family. We are Jain and we do everything. Namori Intanang, we just do it. Why to ask for a translation? And they asked for translation and all this, and that shook me actually. So I started doing more and more reading, bringing people even at that time, with telephone to India, writing to some gurus, and also trying in this country, but at that time there were not many. 73 was different. When there was, quite a good Indian, immigration, coming to, that was the welcome from 1973. It was a different perspective when more and more of our people were coming to this country. But until then, so I thought, boy, I have to tell my children I can't do, I have to do proper because they are very curious. They are learning in a good school. So I have to get knowledge. At that time, I had few books. One of Tavan in our hymns, Pratikaman, book of.
Okay, so this is part 2 of our amazing interview of Professor Kanti Mardia. So he is in Hull, and unfortunately he's hit the glass ceiling. He can't go to professor, even though his research is of world-class quality and recognized and everything. But also he discovers suddenly in Hull, he discovers Jainism in a sense that his children are asking questions. Why do we do this and why don't we do that? Growing up in India, the upbringing was very ritualistic, so you kind of don't ask questions, you just do. But now he's trained in science, so he's trained to ask questions and to find out. So through his children, he starts to rediscover Jain philosophy and Jain science. In fact, not only did he start to rediscover, but he's actually now published several books, several path-breaking books on Jainism. So it's interesting how migration, in one sense, takes you away from home, but in another sense, brings you back home in a very different way. So suddenly now Kantibai is not the ritualistic Jain, but now he's going to be Jain by knowledge, because he's going to look at a very different dimension of Jainism, which he didn't see growing up in India. So Kantibai, tell us, so you were very lucky. You got a professorship at Leeds University, which was not far from Hull, still in Yorkshire. Yorkshire is beautiful. It's such a stunning countryside. The people are very nice. And you started the Yorkshire Jain Foundation there. We did in Jain Spirit many years ago, we did a 3 Peaks challenge in Yorkshire. And one of the things we felt was it was such a success that we felt as if we should adopt this area as a Jain pilgrimage site, because it is so beautiful and it feels mountainous and it's very spiritual. And so many Jains have actually done the 3 Peaks challenge and they've come there again and again. We also have many friends. Atul Shah, who lives in York, the naturopath, is like you, an outstanding Jain in terms of his knowledge about healthcare and well-being. And there's something about Yorkshire and the energy and especially the nature, which we as Jains celebrate, which is very special. So tell us about that journey of moving to Leeds and setting up the Yorkshire Jain Foundation and your search for Jainism.
Yes, thank you again, Atul. And it's kind of you to describe succinctly. Sometime, as I said, I always wonder, the way the orator like you can describe. I may not be able to put the same way the presentation. I think there's a limitation of scientists versus those who are having good training in what we may call arts, social science subjects, although you are in the boundaries of both, so you've got advantage of both aspects. Anyway, so we moved to Leeds, and I was really grateful to Vice Chancellor Lord Boyle, who was at that time the Vice Chancellor of Leeds University, and he overall liked India and Indians, as it turned out, because in the interview there were quite many candidates for the chair, and it is very difficult at that time for ethnic minority, to, as if you get into competitions and get a post when there is such a competition to, for ethnic minority. However, I was pleasantly surprised. I was offered the post, and then I started negotiating various things which worked out, in particular personal secretary, statistical assistant, and he gave everything, whatever I asked as a part of my chair. So I was really fortunate, and I came to know Lord Boyle quite closely, and he would send me questions related to statistics, and I won't go in detail just now, but there was one question related to his piano competition, whether there is a run in it or because of their ear are getting a bit sore with the continuous music, and so journey to Leeds was really great. Pawan got a job which he couldn't get in Hull. Hemant got a scholarship in grammar school,
Bela got in very good school, which was grammar school before. And so the family, we started settling down well. So when I was appointed, one of the things I had to do is modernize the department. The computing was coming with, we did earlier with facet machine, and then we came to electric computers and or called computer. So the world was changing fast. For square root, I was very pleased when I was given, one particular machine for calculating, which has got a square root on it. Very expensive. I think about 2,000 pounds in 73 or something. And, so those were the world in which the department was, and we were going through, like all other department, into big transition with computing science coming. So one thing which I had thought of, and I started working, very closely, that there should be some interdisciplinary, so that what we work on has to be related to science, or, some questions coming from scientists, rather than, just to do the mathematics or statistics for its own sake. So I moved the department, and then we had quite a lot of conferences, seminar, and I started with a big movement of called Leeds Statistical Annual Research Workshop, LASER. So that became a flagship, and still it is. I'm not involved as much. I'm only support, but that was the focus, where we would bring people from different area of the science to statisticians and try to sort out what they are looking for and how statistician can help. So that theme of interdisciplinary, this is what you described nicely as a part of multifaceted aspect of truth, Anekantvad. And in fact, I should show you at this point that my 80th birthday, I was given festive volume. And those who presented me, the authors, they asked me what picture I would like. And this was the picture.
Can you put it this way? Yeah. Wow. So for those of you who don't know, a festschrift is a special book published in honor of a great professor. So not all professors get a festschrift. And the book is published, usually the articles in the book are from students who have learned from this professor, and they are giving it as a lifetime gift. So they've written a special book in the honor of the professor and giving it to him as a lifetime gift. So here we are so fortunate that Professor Mardia has left such a legacy in the field of statistics all over the world, that the students felt that they need to do this, right? And to recognize his great and unique contribution to the field. Now, what is interesting also is, and I see this when I talk to Jains all over the world, that we never use the word leadership. But when you look at what we have done, we are actually leaders. We are pioneers. We open a whole field here. Professor Kanti Bhai is straight away head of department of a new department of statistics. And then he's straight away not only building the department, but he's also building the field by creating these research workshops and bringing different people together to look at big problems and challenges in the field of statistics. So he's giving leadership to a whole, not only a department and a group of people, but to a whole subject and a science and a discipline. Now, that kind of leadership is again quite common among Jains, because we are such disciplined people. we become very natural leaders. Because what we do, we live by example. We are very authentic as to how we live. And we are not very loud, we don't show off, we are very humble, but at the same time, we are very helpful. And when you're helpful and humble, people want to be your friends. People want you to lead them. You don't even need to seek a leadership position. You automatically become a leader. So Kantibai, your life really illustrates that philosophy so beautifully, that you come to a country where you have no relatives, where the only people is your family, but you build a whole new family, not just a family in terms of your neighbors and friends, but also a professional family around the field of statistics. And I have to share you one other story, Kantibai. I don't know if you know, but my nephew, Hetan Shah, who is a Jain, was the chief executive of the Royal Statistical Society. And he's now become the chief executive of the British Academy. The British Academy is the global academy in the field of social science. Very world famous, and he is the chief executive. Very intelligent young man. But there is something about Jains and leadership, which is very interesting, you know. So
Yes.
tell us more about Leeds and how you grew the field there.
So let me come back, I think, to continue what you just said. I created with the same theme to broaden this kind of workshop. So I went to Dr. Shah, just you mentioned, at Royal Assistance Society. We became very close, actually, when he was leading, the Royal Assistance Society as executive director. And he helped me to create what is now known as Mardia Prize. So Mardia Prize is part of the Royal Statistical Society, which is given every 2 years to someone who want to pump prime a workshop which interact between different cultures, different subject, different way of thinking.
Oh, what a small world. I didn't know. He's my nephew, Kantibai. I'm so
Yeah,
proud of him.
yeah. So he helped me, and I'm glad that it worked out very well. It's continuing, every year. So this one will be the sixth now, next fifth or sixth. And they called it Mardia Prize. I think they tried to select a word, and they selected, and I humbly accepted it. So it is because this is the thought of, as you just said that, and I have this quote for leisure, that statistics without science is incomplete. Science without statistics is imperfect. So they have to go together rather than in isolation. And many people have recognized, and I was really fortunate, that many people came to this workshop because from different field, bioinformatics, image analysis, geosciences, the field which needed statistical help, and we were quite ahead actually of time to look at the emerging areas to see what is going to come after 10 years. And so that I thought the legacy not only Leeds is continuing with leisure, but that a society should continue the same kind of a gap, vacuum which they can fill to give the pump priming. So that's and one of the important, the few people I can mention, and they are good friends. I made many good friends internationally, and one of them, of course, is Nobel laureate Michael Levitt from Stanford University, and to get him, of course, people try from Oxford or Cambridge to get him, they wouldn't. But when he says Leeds, oh yes, and he came twice. So that kind of relationship, and Sir David Cox, who is in Oxford, he had very distinguished
one of the living legend of statistics. He many a times he came to give lectures and to support. So we created. I think it became a flagship of Leeds University, and they are continuing and they use it. And many things happen, and one thing which is of important, because of these working with different brains in a different field, that we have created a new mathematics for brain. Those who suffer from FASD is something. It's a fatal. This is a brain disease. I think some of you will know. So this is which get from alcohol. So it's a fatal alcohol syndrome disorder. So our work is used in America in court, especially when there is a witness related to some murder, whether they had because of this FASD, then instead of getting life sentence, they will be instead of getting execution, or instead of that, it can be converted into a life sentence. So that has been one of, and it is done through brain imaging, MRI, and then looking at whether there is FASD from our test. So that's been used, also by Leeds University in their metric, their ref for their assessment exercises. So anyway, so this is one of the things at Leeds University we developed, and we also brought department in time. The Leeds University Department of Statistics is very old actually, but it was more as a part of School of Mathematics. It was a new in the sense of as a separate department a number of years ago. So but then now coming to your other question, I think, so as I said, the children were trying to know what this Jainism is. I said, well, Parshvanath, Mahavir Swami, we have to pray, and this is so what. So they wanted more detail about, of course, their life, and more about what it stands for. One side is Christianity, which they knew quite a lot. Other side is nothing of Jain. And at that time, there was not much actually in this country. I'm talking of 60s and 70s. So as I said, that we had one photograph which my dad gave when we came to here. Another was a book by Chitra Bhanu. So that we read anecdote from his book, because they were quite path-breaking in some sense, quite deep. So this is in 60s, his books, what he wrote. So this continued, this journey. So when, as you know, that you become a professor, the olden time, you have to give inaugural address. And perhaps you will describe what inaugural address means to the general public, I think. So the inaugural address, at that time, it was quite a lot of ceremony. There was a vice chancellor will have a gown. I will have to put a gown, and then many things. People will make a procession before I start speaking. So when I was writing this, and they, of course, published afterward what you have given in your inaugural address. So I put part of it was Jainism and science. And because I was thinking quite deeply about it, so I talked about Syadvad, that how relationship, Anekantvad, how it is that Anekantvad is a form of stratified sampling, that's how, and the Syadvad is a method of inference connecting with syllogism. So I am still building up in my mind, looking at books. So boy, there are thousands and thousands. Jains are such a great scholar, they do classification, sub-classification, sub-classification. And, where to see the wood for trees. I looked at many books, talked to many people, and being scientist, being academic, you see that what will convince children, there is. So finally, I started, during that period of giving inaugural address, I started working on axiomatic system to Jain thinking. Now, many people won't know what axioms means, but mathematicians, of course, they do. It's their heart, like Euclidean geometry based on axioms, 2 points joined together, it makes a straight line, and so on and so forth. So I started and then consulted many people as I was doing, and Chitra Bhanu was always in forefront, and he always encouraged me. And fortunately, I met him in 1978-79 in Leicester, because while I was working, they came to know of me, and they invited me to interfaith meeting in 1978 in Leicester, where Paul Merritt was there, Natu Bhai were there, and many others, very curious people. And there where I first time gave idea of this axiomatic system, that what is the first step to be Jain, as a scientist, and is it plausible? And it is related to, scripture, you are not making it up, which is easily done. So authenticity, and then, of course, accuracy, and then being scientist, precision, that, I could write a very big book easily, perhaps, if I was with art training, but being science training, I think every word, every sentence has to be weighed 30 times before you publish it. So then the first step I came to know Jivoti Kam Sanyukto, which is taken from scripture, Panchastikaya, which means that. So what I did was, this is the seed thought, and I translated as axiom 1. The soul exists and is contaminated and is long to be purified. So that it is a contaminated existence of soul, and then it's contaminated by karmic matter. So if you don't believe in karmic matter, which is composed of what I coined karmon, which is very near karma, the word so I created a very big vocabulary, including Jainness, because I said not to call Jainism. I think it is a misnomer. It should be, so then I tried to convince my children, and he said, well, karmon, you can't see, what are you? So I said, in particle physics, how do you see the light? The photon, you are not seeing it. Electron, you are not seeing electricity. So why don't you believe in that there could be what Jain have been saying, particle physics for 1,000 years, that there are these karmons which are but funny. They interact with soul. They don't any other you go to Afghanistan, you try to become more and more and other places they have this capacity. So anyway, so this way I developed, and each chapter gave that our idea of Jain, what our main terms are, the specific, this, number of existence, tattva, pap, punya, bandha, ashrama, and I brought new terms like karmic fusion, karmic decay, and all these which
which it helped them to understand what I'm talking about, and which each correlate with our scripture, that this is, so each chapter start with these and then go through the developing the theme of axiom, that if you believe in this, what will be the consequence. So that those are plausible, and it is kind of you, and I'm still grateful that you got my book reviewed in Jain spirit. And Chandriya, Shamil Chandriya, boy, he's brilliant. I didn't see what he saw. I didn't see that part in the book. What he saw, and the synthesis which he did. And then he said that they are something somewhat sound more like four noble truth of Buddhist, of Jain. In a way, they are not one-to-one parallel, but he put very nicely that this is reminiscence. So since then, because when I talked about axiom, everyone closed their ears and the brain simultaneously. But when I started using Four Noble Truths of Jain Dharma, Four Noble Truths of Jain Dharma, they thought there is something in it. There is some meaningful. So that book then got translated in Hindi, they translated in Gujarati, it was launched. But it is not an easy book, although it is 170 pages. So again, with your he read, he was influenced, and he said that one thing he liked that about Jain thinking is that you yourself are the architect. You yourself the lab, and everything is up to you. So that's the started, and he found that it will be better to have a different version of it, which is okay. We are back. I think something is going funny somewhere. Anyway, coming back to this book, Living Jainism, came into existence and published by Mantra, and it's doing very well actually. There are quite a lot of people are learning more from that book than they would from my original, which is more for scientists who believe in tables, graphs, pictures. So that's has led to. So in 1990, I finished this book. And wherever I went abroad, I went to Princeton from 1985. Once a year, every 1 month, March, April, as a visiting professor from 1985 to about 1995. And but wherever I went, then to our conferences or visiting professorship, I looked for Jain society, Jain association, and gave lectures. So I did this continuously. The last one was when I was in Oregon in 2016, that I gave, and then 2017 again. So that in 2018, let me think, in Vancouver, beautiful temple, and in Vancouver, there's quite a lot I have got effect on or contribution from Vancouver. So the journey, whenever all these invitation around the world came, even in Europe, I looked for, Jains or Jain Association and tried to get dissemination of these so-called Four Noble Truths. And then small book
what I call, these Jain thoughts and prayer, which partly came to synthesize. And then when we do ritual, and Yoksha Jain Foundation coming to it, 1987 we formed Yoksha Jain Foundation. There are still very few Jains in Leeds and Yorkshire in general, but and in 2001 he approached, or about 2000, he says we could have a section, a module for Jains, and whether Yoksha Jain Foundation is interested, and I just jumped at it. I said, of course we are interested, and so that we, contributed, and then you kindly came, and you had also a stall to publicize, the nice your magazine as well as other your ideas. So that's and my of Yaksha Jain Foundation mission, which all of us are member, is that if you do ritual, you must do it with understanding. Don't do it blindly. But this book has got everything inclusive in it, and so we had each of our ceremony, and I will just show you if I can just lay my hand on. If I think they are. So, and you would know yourself that we had these. I think it may not be in focus. These leaflets. So so that people, and then they see what is going on and what is the meaning, and then there will be someone speaking and telling while ceremony is going on that this is not in vacuum. And then the one which is a great thing is about this Siddha Chakra Puja. Because it is a coming on the title. So you can see Siddha Chakra, what a geometry, what a configuration, and what a history, what a Jain rituals with knowledge. Without knowledge, they say pratham gyan. So the first is knowledge, and then compassion, then daya. So that's our, sutras, Dasvakalika. And then we had also prabhavna, the distribution, so that it stays like for Four Noble Truth. We had, and this.
Beautiful.
So that, fortunately, I was very pleasantly surprised that in Florida, Gurudev Mahendra Kumarji, he showed this plate where it says Mardia 1999. At the top it says Carmon, because normally, unfortunately, there are two type of scholarship going on. The one type is very much tenure tracked, I think rightly so, that you have to have the authenticity, and unfortunately, in some sense, it doesn't help the young generation, because that is more like data mining, this translation of this, that, and other, very important. But then it is important to for subject, because it is but then it doesn't help, because it's directly to the seekers. So if you are looking for seekers, hungry, who want to know from different religion, they want to, or different philosophy, they want to know, what is Jainism or what is Jainness.
then it didn't help. It of course, we are grateful that many Western scholars are now there, and thanks to, in USA, much more prominent in universities, thanks to Sulek Bhai and many, and Jaina in particular. Jaina is a brilliant organization, and YJA, this young branch is another. So there is a lot of interesting things going on.
Yeah. So Kanti Bhai, can we say, as a summary, I mean, can we say that you are an accomplished scientist professionally, right? But after even doing that scientific research, right, you are discovering that the Jain science and the depth of the Jain philosophy and science is far, far higher, and in a way that there's still so much left to be discovered and to be understood by the present time and society. And that you, through that, you have also discovered that the Jain tradition is actually highly scientific as a tradition. So it's not just about faith and about a creator God or a belief, but actually it's about the science of life, the rhythm of the universe. You've invented terms like karman. You talk about Jainness. Again, that's a very unique idea. So you've actually also tried to advance the field, but also connect that field with the modern understanding of physics and the universe as well. So that kind of offers a lot of promise for young scholars to try and who are actually probably trained in a very secular way. I mean, this is the other thing. I would like to ask you that question, right? Modern science is extremely secular. It says religion has no place in science. Religion takes us backward. And here you are saying that actually after going through modern science and going through the depth of science, that you are discovering that religion is also scientific. It's actually, there is no such thing as a divide between science and non-science, secularism and humanity. So what would you say to that?
Yeah, number one, in my 1990 book, one of the quotation I gave from Nature, the highly regarded scientific journal, one of the topmost, of Albert Einstein, science without religion is lame, religion without science is blind. And not only, because that was the one, and then I read his article full, and he just briefly, I think I say somewhere, he says, a person who is religiously enlightened appears to me to be one who has, to the best of his ability, liberated himself from the fetters of his selfish desire. He is writing in the same journal where he has got this. So Jain is a person who has conquered himself or herself. So this is absolutely, he's defining Jain thinking. So I asked Jerusalem, university, a curator, that whether he knew, because Jains are of course very proud that he knew Jainism. But they said, no, there is no word. They looked everywhere. He talked of Eastern philosophy in general, but not as a specific. And I wish, Jain were alert, these physicists of that time. And of course, they missed an opportunity. So I tried to correct that by going to Roger Penrose, because he's in Oxford. So he knows about Jain thinking. And I had a long conversation with him. I gave the small book, which I do to give everyone, but I want to have a conversation. And he was surprised to know this concept of karma and interaction with soul. He said he has talked to many Jains. He has been to India in Jain temples, but no one pointed out this to him. So, of course, his question was,
what has to do with consciousness? You know, the how. So the answer is, in a qualitative Jain knew, quantitative, you know, they don't have differential equation to show you. But on the other hand, you know, if you with advancement, perhaps one may be able to have experiment to find karmas, for example. You know, this is so difficult, but so I had a conversation, and then I wanted to, through him, and unfortunately it didn't work out. Stephen Hawking, you know, he was to come to Oxford, but he was ill, and you know, so I was trying, and I wrote to him as well, but only secretary replied what was his view of Stephen Hawking. So what I'm trying to say is, I agree entirely that it is Jain philosophy, Jain science is a deep one, but there is too much. It is so much that you can got lost in space, I think, and that was what I tried to do, you know, to bring focus, you know, to see the wood for the trees, you know, because, so then after I finished my 1990 book, I thought, you know, and I talked to Jambu Vijayji, who was, you know, one of the greatest scholar of Agmas, and the very, you know, extraordinary mind. And when I met him in 1980, he clarified so many ideas in 1 hour. And I was trying here, there, everywhere, and I couldn't get answers. So he you know, the way that this developed, and then I got subsequently, then I talked to him before he died in 2009 or 2008, when I saw him again, because I'm writing this book. So I saw him 2-3 times, at least in Ahmedabad that time before. And then he said, Kanti, what you have done, or he said, you know, he didn't say Major Kanti, but Professor Mardia, that you wrote first book is, in some sense, you are following path of Uma Swati. Umas, and I didn't know what I was doing. I said, as a scientist, I'm just doing it. And he said that the Tattva Sutra was his fundamental. Then he wrote second book, Prashamriti, which I knew little bit of it. And he said, now you should read Prashamriti more deeply, because what you are thinking of Kashayas and trying to develop since you wrote this book. And because that book, the Prashamriti, which is, he wrote more for people like us, you know, more Mardia is just an academic. You know, there's no gyan. I think it's just following as much as possible, you know, from literature, talking to people. Another set of doctrines called Kashaya doctrine, and that's a plate I had, if I got, we gave in one of our, I think if I can open it. So in a way, it's the doctrine, just like, I don't know how it is going in this way. So that's the plate we distributed to those who came from, you know, to our satsang from Leicester, for example, London. We have been blessed, actually. We had great support from Jain community, especially we needed, because you know, we didn't have enough critical mass in Leeds or Yorkshire Jain Foundation. So there is a lot to be still discovered, and I'm doing it in my own way, and I'm grateful to many Gyanis, many editors, and P.S. Jaini, I met him again at 2009 when he came for Ahimsa Award and had a long chat about my draft, which I'm writing since 1990, still going on. Finger crossed it will be it will finish by end of this year. So that Kashaya doctrine, the one which is more practical, the more, and this day and age with so much greed, so much of hatred and anger and, these four Kashayas, four negatives, this, how you become aged, anger, greed, ego, deceit, aged. Chitrabhanu, as he made this small abbreviation. And, they are everywhere. And the Jain have already made fundamental discoveries on, how to combat them, how to conquer them. What is the way, to have control on them, how to subsidize them, to subsidence of. So this is, so that's the one part which I thought later on when I finished 1990, that this is the part where I should take the path of, and it's called management of destructive emotion. It's Kashaya Mukti, how to get Mukti from Kashayas.
Yeah, thank you. No, that is all fascinating. In fact, Kantibai, I would say one of the big trends today is about decolonizing the curriculum. And the Jain, the Jina, is a conqueror of the self, right? So nobody has that concept. Where there's so much research about decolonizing the curriculum, about you removing the influence of empire, of domination, slavery, etc. But our conception of decolonization, again, is so unique for the whole of social sciences, right? That nobody is even talking about it. Even our Jain scholars who I've talked to, are still not understanding this very basic, that here we have the potential to expand Jainism and give it to the whole world by saying we know how to decolonize the mind. And to decolonize the mind, you have to deal with the four Kashayas. So I think that is one learning I have from you, which is brilliant. The second question I have, this is like what I would call a hypothetical question. Kantibai, let's just imagine you never left India. So it's the same soul, right? But you never left India. Do you think you would have written these books on Jainism that you have written today?
Yeah, I was interviewed by this program Atiti in Ahmedabad, and he asked similar question, and I couldn't answer. But roughly, I don't think I would have done anything. Namely, quite a lot of academic time in India, which I found when I left, and then I didn't want to go back, is politics. Even in the academic world, you are not left alone. Someone want to share your work, do all kind of things, although it is improving, but at that time, so with that environment of that time, I'm saying, now India, of course, and young are much more alert, and I have got very good connections of Jains in Ahmedabad in particular, that I don't know what would have happened. I think I would have continued fighting the organization. So here also, when I was the head of department, I was one of unpopular head for center, because I always believed in vision, and I never believed in algorithm, because they said this was precedence. I said, so what? The precedence, you have to get out of it. That is normally. So this is not normal. And you take this word out normally otherwise and just change it. And I was always fighting for my staff, fighting for development. And but this was doable. It wasn't something which is you are breaking your head against a wall,
which is what would have happened in India, I think it would have been a totally different Kanti Mardia. Sure. I think it would not have been the opportunity and even the merit in this country, is one of the things. But decolonizing, what you put brilliantly, I like this word, and it should be spread everywhere, because it was nice of Mahendra Kumar ji and Samni ji, Chaitanya ji, Chaitanya Pragya ji, to show this slide, but people are using my terminology, using everything, but they are not accepting it. They are not how to put it, acknowledging it, and that this is the word, this is the way forward. So it's a one way. Of course there are many paths. There are different paths, but and this mainstream of Jain scholar is quite a different than a scholar like us, which has got more freedom and forward looking. We are not data mining all the time. We are seeing vision. We see what was meant by our gurus, what is meant in the current circumstances. Not that X said this, Y said this, in this, and comparison, history, geography. What is, in science, those kind of work will be thrown out. I can't have my PhD student translating something and saying, can I get PhD for this? I gave this so-called bhashan. I gave this, I was, to the Jain Association there. I was asked while I was visiting Columbia University, British Columbia University. So I gave this.
I think, Kanti bhai, let's, I think we'll need to try and wrap up, but thank you. All these ideas are fantastic, and they do show the different dimensions of Jainism that you have opened up. And I think more importantly, you've just said that actually Jainism is in a way, a radical science, a fundamental science, a science which does not settle for traditional notions of evidence or of data, and instead it asks some very big questions. And it not only does it ask those questions, but when you look at the scriptures, that those questions have already been asked and extensively analyzed and discussed. Now, this is a very important message to the young generation, who, unfortunately today, many of them are almost quite negative about Jainism. They may actually be very talented scientists, not, in terms of accountants, pharmacists, doctors, lawyers. But when you ask them about Jainism, they would not be able to speak for 10-15 minutes in a positive way. So we have a really, really big challenge to this kind of scientific generation of getting them to appreciate Jain science.
So, we keep on having this hiccup. So, let us end with Michami Dukram. I think, we have done, went through quite a lot in the limited space, in spite of these interruptions, which for some reason, someone is watching us.
Thank you so much, Kanti bhai. And of course, we will edit the recording and share it.
Michami Dukram again. Michami Dukram.
Michami Dukram.